The Spot Track Podcast, talking sports contracts, the salary cap, and business of sports.
Welcome to another edition of the Spot Track Podcast. My name is Mike Ginnitti. It is Friday, June 14th. Plan to take the second half of the week off here with the podcast, but quarterback contracts supersede all other plans. So here we are. Trevor Lawrence, 5 years, $275 million. New years, new money. That means it's a 7-year, $306 million total value contract. We'll get to that in a second. Some immediate thoughts and reactions. This was percolating now for about a month. We knew this was happening. I was on record in December and January saying this is one of those situations that could wait. And I was sort of in the mindset that Trevor Lawrence would be the one to wait, because we're not going down with this money. That's for sure. And he certainly proved that again, but not his best last 18 months of football. Let's put it that way. And Jacksonville as a whole definitely disappointed last year in a situation where they really could have ramped up not only their own contention window, but certainly Trevor Lawrence's progression into the top tier of quarterbacks, which I don't believe he's at. And I don't think anybody with two eyes and a set of, and a brain currently think he's at yet. But that's not what the money says. And that's the conversation we have to have here. You're seeing all the tweets come back out like they do with every big contract in this league, which is, right? It's just the next man up mentality. Yes and no. You got to throw all the cliches out with the quarterback stuff. If you have a guy who can be a guy, certainly is a guy, you have to pay. That's just it. There's no bigger leveraged position in all of sports right now. None. This is it. This is the top of the mountain, and everybody else is about 1.5 miles down the hill with their ice picks, trying to at least see the quarterbacks at the top of this thing. That's how far away it is. It's 100% player leverage here. If you at least show a glimmer of hope, and or you were drafted in a spot that has a ceiling, an expectation that comes with top tier quarterback play. And that's where Trevor Lawrence is. And he has the perfect carbon copy in our league to go by, at least from a prototype standpoint. Certainly not from a mathematical productive standpoint. Okay. But this was clearly a situation where Trevor Lawrence's agent walked into the Jacksonville front office and said, we know we're not there yet, but we believe this organization is looking to model and looking to become the next iteration of the Cincinnati Bengals. And we believe Trevor Lawrence will be the next iteration of Joe Burrow. I don't think there's anything else that needs to be said here, because that's exactly what the contract numbers, at least the initial ones that we have, tell us. Burrow signed after his third season, first year of eligibility, signed 5 new years, $275. He had a little bit stronger of a rookie contract, so it's $310 million total value over 7 years for Joe Burrow. Practical guarantees on Burrow's $219, Trevor Lawrence $200. Guarantees at signing, slightly less for Burrow, $142 for Trevor Lawrence, and Burrow is up in the $149 region, guaranteed at signing. Burrow got a $40 million signing bonus. Trevor Lawrence gets a $37.5 million signing bonus. So Trevor Lawrence's agent says, we want to be the next Joe Burrow. Jacksonville rebuts with, you're not Joe Burrow yet, so we're not going to pay you exactly Joe Burrow money. But here's 98% of that, because that was then, this is now. The salary cap is 255.4. The revenue streams, we've added 2 more streaming devices to our revenue plan. We all know the situation that we're dealing with here. And here we are. That's it. We'll see how the cash flow breaks down. We'll see how things look. We had a practical contract extension for Trevor Lawrence at 4 for $200. Well, $200 million is the practical guarantee in this thing. And I can guarantee you it's over the next 4.5 years. So from that standpoint, this makes a heck of a lot of sense. This is exactly where we thought it was going to be. That adjusted AAV should be right around 50, maybe even 49 or 48. If they backloaded this thing a little bit, and why wouldn't they? Trevor Lawrence has not been a top tier quarterback on a consistent basis. They did have some pushback in terms of how to structure this contract, so I'm excited to see the full nuts and bolts of this thing. But the numbers are all exactly where they have to be to pay a quarterback right now. Daniel Jones got $81 million for 2 years, guys. I don't know why we're all surprised still. Okay. Derek Carr was released from the Raiders and still got $100 million guaranteed with New Orleans. Kirk Cousins was allowed to walk away from the Vikings after an Achilles tear and got $100 million guaranteed from the Falcons. But this is just what's happening. If you can throw the ball with any kind of accuracy, and you can move around a little bit, and you can keep an offense intact, you're going to get paid top dollar in this league. And this is top dollar. $55 million a year, at least new money, new average. That's tied with Burrow at first. The $275 overall contract, tied for second with Burrow. Only Mahomes' ridiculous 13-year contract stands above that. This is where you have to be. Okay, Justin Herbert did this last offseason. Joe Burrow did this again. Now here we are with Trevor Lawrence. And guess what? I've been telling you this, and you've been pushing back as much as humanly possible, but Tua's next. Okay, and Tua now has a framework to say, well, I'm certainly in Trevor Lawrence's neighborhood, and I want to be in Joe Burrow's neighborhood. It's the exact same conversation. All right. Tua probably has a few more resume bullets to go by too. So if this thing looks a little bit more like Burrow's guarantees and Burrow's percent of cap, right? If this thing gets into the 57 million per year, it's not going to shock me. All right. And speaking of which, you know that metric is the one we're trying to go to now as much as possible. The percent of average salary based on the current league salary cap when you sign your contract. So for Trevor Lawrence, we're talking 55 million against 255.4, right? For Burrow, it's 55 million against less than that, 224 and change. Burrow's percent is actually the number one amongst active quarterbacks. Okay. His 55 million represents 24.4% of the signed salary cap. Josh Allen, 4 years ago, 23.5. That's second right now. All right. In other words, the AAVs that these players secured in their financial landscape was robust. They look like values now, right? Allen looks like one of the best values in all of football because it's 4 years old. But at the time, it was an aggressive pay. It was an aggressive contract. Trevor Lawrence, immediately out of the gate, is 10th. His 55 million represents 21.5% of the current salary cap. He bumped Jared Goff down to 11. That was probably another foundational point in this negotiation. We got to make sure we're past him. We're younger. All right. Here's your top 10 in terms of percent average salary versus the respective salary cap. Burrow, Allen, Herbert, Lamar, who was a free agent, remember, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, and now Trevor Lawrence. And Tua's going to be in here. Okay. Tua's probably going to be 8th or 9th. All right. If Dak redoes his contract this offseason, he'll move way up this with his leverage and his pretty easily $60 million a year contract now. But this is the metric that always sort of tells the other side of the story. So, yep, he's 55 million, which is tied for first. However, in the grand scheme of things, that 55 million is actually 10th when you look at it from a percentage standpoint. Is it a good move by Jacksonville? It has to be. It just has to be, because waiting on their part is suicide. With Tua coming, with Dak coming, with more coming next offseason. You can't wait, right? If you got to take this, right? 21.5%, you sign it. And you deal with the fact that he's going to be your quarterback for probably at least 4 years from a practical standpoint. And you're about to pay him $200 million from a practical standpoint. You just have to hope that you can right the ship and that you can plug and play enough pieces on an annual off-season basis to A, stay divisionally relevant, but also start to climb this AFC a little bit more, which is not an easy task because of the many quarterbacks I just read on this list. We'll see the structure. They haven't been cheap. Jacksonville has been aggressive. Not aggressive enough to keep Calvin Ridley, which I thought would have been a nice move, but they're going depth with their weapons this offseason, and I don't hate that. And by the way, I expect the Travis Etienne contract too. right? Something along the lines of an adjusted Jonathan Taylor. Because when healthy, he's maybe the most important weapon for Trevor Lawrence going forward. And I realize he's a running back. I realize he's had injuries, and I know it. I know the history. But when you go in a various window, you don't limp in the NFL. Okay, you just don't. Or you're going to be 9-9. So I expect more aggressiveness from this front office, right? And they retained Evan Engram. They have shown over the past that they are willing to go out and acquire defensive players, offensive linemen via the trade, knowing they have to give up unbelievably valuable draft assets to do so. They have drafted Brian Thomas Jr., who a lot of people had one or two on their wide receiver boards this offseason. So there's a world where Jacksonville is very close. And maybe that very close conversation starts with Trevor Lawrence, who, for all intents and purposes, should now be more invigorated than he's ever been in his life. Okay. He now has a $200 million guaranteed weight on his shoulders, and sure seems like a guy that can handle that. Burrow certainly was. All right. And outside of the injury stuff with Burrow, he's in the top 3 quarterback conversation. Can Trevor Lawrence graduate to that mark? That's what we have to see. We'll break down the cap and cash stuff as soon as we have it, obviously, in both an article and podcast form. And we'll do a little bit more comparison work at that point and kind of see where Jacksonville stands, not only for the rest of this offseason, but moving into March when they're going to have some more expiring contracts. And like I said, maybe an ETN conversation as well. But this was a no-brainer from their standpoint. My bugaboo was, should Trevor Lawrence have punted on this offseason, bet on himself a little bit, and come back when the new bar was $60 million, when the new bar was $150 million guaranteed at signing, really, and done this thing next March. But it's a good, smart deal from a team standpoint, and it's not my money, right? That's the best part of being able to talk about this stuff. It's somebody else's $142 million going into escrow right now, $37.5 million of which is being paid to Trevor Lawrence cash right now from a signing bonus. So more to come, plenty to get to in that regard, and certainly newsworthy of bringing a microphone out on a Friday morning. A couple of more NFL notes here. We had minicamp this past week, some notable holdouts. I'm going to talk through a few of them in terms of the contractual side of things. Amari Cooper in Cleveland, fascinating situation, kind of one that's been swept under the rug here, even though there had been public statements that he wanted a new contract. He is not pleased with the current situation. Remember, they acquired Jerry Jeudy from Denver and subsequently extended him. Kind of surprisingly, I don't think that would be something that was on all of our dockets this this offseason because of the lack of production over the rookie contract with Jerry Jeudy. But he's a $17.5 million player. He scored $41 million guaranteed. Most of that over the next 2 seasons. It's basically 2.5 years guaranteed for Jerry Jeudy, who's 25 years old as of last month. Amari Cooper's 29. All right. He's clearly the number one option, right? There's Cooper, Njoku, Jerry Jeudy, and Elijah Moore as your main focal points now. Jeudy is paid as a number 2, right? That contract I just broke down for you, that's a number 2. And that's a low number 2 based on what we're seeing now with this market. So what is it going to take for Amari Cooper, who's got 1 year, $20 million left, non-guaranteed as of now, with this Cleveland organization? He's going to be entering his year 30 season. Generally, there's some pushback, right? And when I go to evaluate him using our algorithm, names like Mike Evans and Devontae Adams and now Calvin Ridley, who's 29 going on 30, even Cooper Kupp kind of come into the calculation. He's about 10% lower than those 4 names from an overall production standpoint. All right. So our math basically says this player should be about 4 for 88. All right. Total value into his age 32 season. 2 of those years fully guaranteed, right? Is he taking a 2 for 44 right now? Probably not. If I'm any kind of WR1 in this league, I don't care how old I am, my price point starts at $25 million per year. It has to. It has to, because of what Justin Jefferson just did, because of what CeeDee Lamb's about to do. And I get it. Those guys are 4 years younger. and more talented for all intents. It doesn't matter. The wide receiver market is having a moment where nobody's saying no right now. In any regard, we've talked about it. It's coming from every angle. Trades, drafts, extensions, free agency. Everybody's getting paid. Calvin Ridley just got 4 for 92, $23 million a year, 51 fully guaranteed from Tennessee to be their new quasi number 1 wide receiver. And that's low. And Amari Cooper's production is markedly better than Calvin Ridley if you just go one-on-one, markedly. I'm starting at $25 million a year. Okay, I'm looking for 2 for 50 fully guaranteed right now, 4 for 100. That's got to be it. And it's low. That's a foundational start. All right. Knowing what Jeudy just got, knowing what Njoku got, okay, certainly knowing what Deshaun Watson got, but that's not something we bring up in public. And I'm guessing they don't bring up internally either. It's a team like Jacksonville that has decided to go all in. Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, etc. There's a dozen notable contracts, certainly on the offensive line as well. And they may have shot themselves in the foot with that Jeudy extension. It didn't have to happen. You could have rented him, seen how it went, and then dealt with that next offseason. Now, you got him at a great price if he's going to be a real number 2 option for you, possibly even a number 1. But that's wishful thinking for the next 3 seasons, in my opinion. You need a layer on top of him, and Amari Cooper has been and should continue to be that layer, even at his age. So I'm looking at the Mike Evans situation, which ended up being, 2 for 41. That's just not enough. All right. That's a player that's a year and a half older. Marty has more left in him, especially within that offense. That's the Vansky offense that he's thrived in. There should be no trouble starting at 2 for 50 fully guaranteed and tacking on a year or 2 after that to make everybody happy. But I get it with him. The Jets, and I'm not going to talk Aaron Rodgers. There's been plenty of that going around. You can probably guess my feelings on that one. But Hassan Reddick basically hasn't reported to this team since he was acquired by this team. And that's not really a small conversation. All right. This is a Jets team that is good. They're loaded. They're deep, but they need this player specifically. Okay. They moved on from Carl Lawson. They moved on from a couple other players. They are somewhat weak on the edge. And this has been a sack machine. Okay. 11, 16, 11, 13. Those are the sack totals for Hassan Reddick over the past 4 seasons. That's unmatched in a lot of cases. All right. He's been one of the guys, and he's entering a contract season. 1 year, $14.5 million cash. He's forfeited his $250,000 workout bonus at this point with his absences. So it's really $14.25 million. And he's willing to do that because he knows that even at age 30, well, not even 29 3/4, he needs a multi-year guarantee. And the Jets should be willing to do this. Okay. They have fed Miles before, and they know there's more coming, right? They know that Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner and a couple other contracts are coming to roost here within the next 18 months. But they're not going backwards unless Aaron Rodgers can't play. And maybe that's what they're waiting for. But I think it's perfectly plausible for Hassan Reddick to be expecting a contract. However, it has been reported, and I believe it's Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, where I first heard this. There was an expectation when this trade happened that Hassan Reddick would not be garnered a new contract this offseason. That this would be, we're going to play this out, and we'll find a time before free agency starts next year to make sure you're taken care of. That's all good. And, it got him into the organization. Wink, wink. I just don't think that's enough. He has the resume to be able to go to this team and say, look, that's fine, but you have to do something. We have to do something about this, whether it's sweeten the pot with incentives for the upcoming season, something I would imagine ends up happening just to make him happy, right? Build in some sack incentives, build in some likely Pro Bowl incentives that are, that can be tacked in, and we'll go from there. It's an interesting one because the Jets now have 2 players missing mandatory camp and 2 players that are very important to the fabric of their 2024 upcoming season. A couple of others. I mentioned the Dallas stuff. It's not going away. Until they do something about it, it's not going away. And we can say it's just networks looking to bank in on the Cowboys' popularity, that's fine, but they have 3 players who need a contract. And how fascinating will it be if none of those players get a contract and are forced to play out 2024? Now, Micah Parsons has a 5th-year option ahead of him in 2025, so he's somewhat secured. Dak is going to free agency. CeeDee Lamb is probably getting a franchise tag. However, there's not much cap space for that. So there's more pain coming, and Zach Martin might retire, and it's just a lot of moving parts in this organization. And I've told you a bunch of times, not signing these players and completely turning this thing over might be the better business move. It's not the better Dallas Cowboys move, right? It's not something they do, but a smart organization might value the draft picks that could come with moving on from those players properly and really being aggressive in the next couple of months. I don't think it's going to happen, but I don't think these contracts are going to happen either. Right? Certainly something to keep watching. Certainly something that we're not going to stop talking about, unfortunately. The Chiefs. They kind of have their things going on here. All right. It's not under the radar that the Chiefs, who just got their rings last night, and the Rashee Rice stuff, the Harrison Butker stuff, there's just a lot. There's a lot of non-football stuff happening. It's something we're monitoring. I believe Rashee Rice is going to be suspended, which should amplify Marquise Brown's role. I have a piece on SpotTrack.com where I just sort of assessed free agency a little bit. I gave you every top contract from every position from this past free agency in terms of total value and my assessment of potential out and things like that for each. Then I went positionally and I tried to find a value bet. And I did find some Chiefs in that regard. And then I listed out, I believe, 25 or so notable available players. And there's some guys, especially defensively speaking, especially in the secondary. There's some serious talent still hanging out there. So we're not done. More extensions to come. I believe a suspension or 2 to come, not to project too much. And I wouldn't even turn off the trade system yet, because I do think now teams have had a bit to evaluate themselves in the mini camps. We're about a month away from training camp, maybe 5 weeks or so. There's plenty of time now when these GMs kind of go vacation in the Bahamas, bump elbows a little bit. We know how that happens. For contracts to come forward, for trade opportunities to come forward, and for more movement to happen middle of July, when I would expect we'd see some fireworks. One more name to throw out there. I'd expect Matthew Stafford to get a Jared Goff type extension, which I know sounds hysterical, but it seems like we're headed in that direction with Matthew Stafford and the Rams, who do not want to give up on each other. The Rams are kind of playing on house money a little bit right now, so they can probably afford to re-up Stafford now ahead of, put the cart ahead of the horse kind of situation. I would expect that movement to really gain some traction. They've been good about keeping things kind of silent, but there's been enough smoke surrounding Stafford's contract situation to make me believe that now, with Goff under contract, Lawrence under contract, Tua probably days away here, that Stafford's contract is coming, and it will not be cheap, because he has overachieved since being acquired from Detroit for Jared Goff only a few years ago. Okay, we'll be back soon with more NFL stuff as it comes. Certainly the Trevor Lawrence breakdown, more MLB trade conversations as Cousin Dan and I continue to work on that behind the scenes. And the NBA Finals are about to wrap up here, so we'll have to have Keith on to discuss Boston, Dallas, and some notable free agents this offseason. A busy one, as usual, in the NBA. That's all next. For Scott Allen, my name is Mike Ginnitti. Thanks for listening to this edition of Spot Check Podcast.